Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vilnius Tech Leads. Today is our second meetup of the fourth season. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. First, a bit of information for those new to Vilnius Tech Leads. We usually do these meetups live, not online, but for obvious reasons, it's our second meetup online. We have more meetups planned for the future, but we're not yet sure if they're going to be live or online. That will depend on the global situation with the pandemic. If you want to register to the future meetups, you can do that on meetup.com, the same place where I assume you've registered for this meetup. We have 3 more future events scheduled, and our next one specifically is the one with conflict, and it's going to happen in January. Now let's go to today's meetup. The theme for today's meetup is stress. I'm sure that most of you have felt stress. You felt overloaded or struggled to cope at some point. I sure did. Leadership especially is a demanding job. It's challenging to be effective when under a lot of stress. Anxiety can be harmful and even hurt our health. All leaders, I believe, must understand what triggers stress, anxiety, and find ways to deal with it. As we talked in our meetup in April of 2019, called The One With Yourself, you can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. Handling stress yourself and then helping others handle it is essential, I believe, to any leader. Today we're going to have 3 speakers who are going to address this topic of stress and share their stories. That's Aliona, Justas, and Gintarė. During the presentation, you can ask questions in the YouTube's chat. I'll read those questions to the speaker after their presentation. And now, without further ado, Aliona, the mic is yours.
Okay, so hello, everybody. I will share my screen, and today I want to talk to you about my personal story, which I really encourage you never try to repeat, and actually learn those lessons from someone else's mistakes. So today I will take you through my life journey with ups and downs, and about 2 major lessons I actually learned in the hard way in my past last 10 years. So first of all, I believe that we all agree today that idea about never stressing or living a stress-free life is actually nonsense. It doesn't exist. So even though in my personal perception, stress is one of the biggest gifts humanity gave us to survive, and actually it prevents us from doing many stupid things, from killing ourselves through jumping out of the window. Plus, as actually director of engineering, I know that the best engineering solutions are definitely born under extreme stress conditions. And what is more in my life, what's very most important to say is that for me is that I used to be a professional athlete. And one of the toughest lessons was actually that I have to know my limits. As I used to be professional biathlete and doing sport professionally, it not only actually taught me that you have to compete and dealing with stress during the competition, but you have to train very hard. So you need to forget that you can't. You need to know that you just should. And it doesn't matter what it's called, or it's hot, or it's too hard, or it's too simple. Nothing actually matters. You have just go and do your job, even though that it's about crossing your limits, because it's all about professional sports is actually making sure that you can do the things which you believe that you couldn't yesterday. And my problem was, and my gift was, that I actually took this attitude to my professional career. And very accidentally, but I will not tell that story today how, but I ended up having my first working career in quite a small 20 people event management firm. And what it meant for me, it was like working evenings, working weekends, having a tours through biggest Lithuanian arenas. And it means that like on Monday you're in Vilnius, on Tuesday you're in Kaunas, on Wednesday you're in Klaipėda, Panevėžys, Šiauliai, and sometimes you are staying without sleep for 5 days with lots of cigarettes and Red Bull. Actually back then for me, I was proud that I'm hallucinating about my work, that I sit in the taxi and I don't remember my home address. It seemed for me that that's my strength, that I can do the things that others can't, and that's why my career is skyrocketing. But I was happy till one day. What it came to me, it was like 6 months. If you think that the person who is sick or who is, I don't know, may die, looks like dying, and that you just lay down and you feel that you're done. No, it's not. That's the photo. 2 weeks ago, I got the diagnosis that I got cancer. And the doctor said that, if you're happy, then you live. So as you see, I was happy. But if you are not really, you have very aggressive and quick form. So it's like maximum 6 months. I was 24 back then. So when you're 24, you don't have kids yet. You actually believe that you have a very long life. Many things strike you that it's like kind of a bit of too early to pass. And I was sitting like in that doc's chair after the call that I need to come, we got your results, you have cancer. And I was feeling like completely healthy person back then. And I'm looking at the doc, who was one of the best in Lithuania, quite old compared to me. And I was asking, so what's now? So it's like therapy. Should I stop smoking? Should I don't know, take some vitamins, not to be in the sun? So doc, what should I do to increase my chances? And like he looks at me. So, the good and the bad thing is that it's only about surgery. So either we are ahead with surgery or behind. And the second one is stress. I'm like 24. And for the first time here in my life, like an old lady, back then I thought you need to have less stress. For me, that was first step when I started to learn about my organism and what stress can make you. So what I hear and what I know right now and what helped me to balance my health things is I started to dig into such thing as psychoneuroendocrinology, immunology, endobiogenics. So I learned lots of things. And what I figured out that in Lithuania would actually have only 2 kinds of health condition. In most of the clinics, it's either you are healthy or you are sick. The healthy means that you don't see any kind of bad things in your blood test results or in your organism when you do a endoscopy and other checks. And if they don't find anything, that means that you are healthy. But if they find something, that means that you are sick. What I figure out later on is that even in Lithuania, you can do like maximum organism disbalance testing. And it shows that in your system, all the diseases, which actually 95% of them are called not by genetics factors, but only by our way of living and how what we do in our life. So they start like 2 years before. So all those processes happen in your organism for quite a bit of time. And only then you have already, as a result, you see that outage of your body, like very bad blood test results or cancer or any dysfunction of your organs. So it's like, that error which is on the hour, which shows the hours, because it's quite, if you look at that, it doesn't seem that it's changing, but when it changes, you feel quite an impact. So my message here, even in Lithuania, when I started to dig into the biohacking and all the testing, there are many tests and many health technologies which could help you to figure out and to check, so how are you on that outage condition when the error rates already started, but it's not that you are down yet. And that was my first lesson: take care of your body. And when you have intense life and you have only one battery unit for everything, you have one unit for your relationship, work, family, hobbies. You don't have separate units for each of those. And if you feel stress in one of these fields, it actually still eats the energy from all of them. And the second one is you need to have appropriate response. I hear my colleagues and friends talking somehow I took 4 days weekend in spa with all the massages and all the therapies, and I don't feel that it was enough rest for me. And for me, it was but you were overtiming, you had lots of stress and other things for 1 year. So you expect that with 4 days, you will simply kill all those stressors. So for me, it's one more very important lesson became that if I want to stay healthy, I really need to be very cautious about what is stress level, which I currently have in life. It doesn't matter in which field. And if I know that I have more stress, I very consciously dedicate more time for the things which balance me and give me some energy and help me to deal with that. And even if I have to do sometimes overtime, I figure out what's the best for my body. So it means that I go to sleep at 9, wake up at 4, do this stuff, and then go to sleep at 9. It really helped me on physical level. It's very important that then it's much easier to deal with the rest of the emotions. But all in all, a few years passed, and even with all those very conscious things, I found myself in condition when I felt quite a bad symptoms, but this time it was not so much physical, it was emotional, because it was like black or white thinking. I had bad sleep, I felt no joy, no sense of meaning. Of course, I had worse relationship then, got 20 kilos on top. I felt frustration without reason, and some additional things, of course, of becoming a mother recently added up on top, because it was some additional stress that I haven't dealt with before. And then I go to the psychotherapy. I talked for 1 hour, I cried. And so I said, so what's up? How you can help me? And what I heard that, Aliona, you're a very smart woman, so you understand lots of things. It's very good. So we will have those weekly meetings for 1-2 years, and you will be fine. And for me, it was 2 years. Are you kidding me? There must be something which can help you much, much faster without 2 years. Honestly, I was not the person who is into, back then, especially into yoga, meditation, traveling to India to find myself. So it was something which I couldn't back then even accept. So for me, I needed very hardly to understand how it works logically. So how it works, why it works, what's happening in my body, and why all those techniques, which sometimes looks very weirdo, why they really work. So that was how I figured out about neuroscience and therapies which are based on that. Neuroeducation, some kind of art therapy, which were very closely cooperating with neuroscientists, and so on. And then I learned second lesson is that all my life I thought that I have brains, but it seems that brain have me. So with all my learnings, what I realized that there are we have conscious mind and subconscious mind, and only 5% of everything that we do consciously. So 95%, it runs like automatic programs, which we learn quite well. And that actually is very smart, talking about our body, because it helps us to very quickly walk, type, and talk at the same time. And we don't need to think how we breathe, how we do things. But the same is with our emotional reactions, because we don't need to think how we react to the certain things and how we behave in the certain situations. And usually that subconscious mind, it's something which mostly the set of programs which are learned from 0 to 7 years old. And what's maybe the problem with that as well, that it's our subconscious mind is really very linear. So we don't have distinction between the past or present, and even our brains do not really recognize when we are imagining something and thinking heavily about something, and when we really feel that and we are actually acting in that situation. So what I noticed in my life, that some of the things were happening as a loops. I had different persons, different environment, but the same problem usually. And one of them was that I was quite afraid of conflict. So if I can avoid conflict, I will do everything not to get into the conflict. And if I am getting in, so that's a fight. And that was actually affecting my personal life, my work life, everything, because, you know, as without stress, you can't really live without conflict. So what I learned is that every time, because of course, if I can avoid, I avoid this. But if I can't, before having that different conversation, I was thinking that, oh my God, okay, so now I'll have to defend myself. I will have to prove that I'm right. And I was going every time into each conversation, which meant for me the conflict. It meant that I'm going as to the war. And what I was explained later on is that our thoughts, they create reality. Because when we are stressed and when I am thinking that I'm going to the war, my body automatically, through all those neurons networks, they actually give the order, give the command, all those stress and fighting hormones to go to my body heavily. And then what's happening, that of course I start even feeling even more stressed. And then when I go with the thought that I'm going to have a battle, there is no chances that I will not have that battle. So of course, and then I get experience that it was, it was hard. So it was even harder maybe than expected. And I have the same experience, same feeling, and same condition once and once again. So what I actually learned, and I did the same with many of my childhood events, with many things which actually quite disturbed my living, is that I tried to figure out what were those programs in my subconscious mind which were running automatically even without me realizing it, and were creating same feelings and same conditions in my life. And what I started to do, and it was quite a tough work, it's actually I started very heavily to control my thoughts. So every time I was going to have a crucial conversation, I was thinking, that I don't understand this person. So, so what I do, I will try with this conversation, I will now understand him. As well, I was thinking that, that if we have disagreement, I don't think anymore that he's an enemy, but I was starting to understand that I need to understand him better. And I did with every my thought. And what happened, the same thing worked with my health. And that's where I actually read about placebo effect and why it works, because it totally can help you healing. That's why in my home, with my 5-year-old daughter, it's not allowed to say that, oh, you are getting sick or you're sick. So how we formulate that is that, oh, you're getting better, even though that we start that she is starting to have a fever, because then all your body actually releases those hormones and those proteins which are required to stay well. And there are many, many ways why it's proven that placebo effect works. So only by controlling your thoughts, you can create completely new reality. And that made me so super conscious about everything and every thought I actually sent to my organism, that I could create completely new reality. And that was actually the crucial thing which helped me to heal emotionally, first of all, and to deal with the stress that I have today. And actually, the last my message for you is that when you think, if you want to understand if you are stressed, listen to the people around you. If they are telling you that, lately you're pessimistic, you see lots of negative side, you are overreacting, you are over dramatizing, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It just really means that you have no energy to feel joy. Because joy for our brains, it's actually the same emotions which requires mental capacity. To see the good things you create, to feel joy, to feel happiness. And if you don't feel it, it simply means that even your brains are very tired. And first of all, you need to have rest, and only then you get chances to feel good vibes. Because the more you go to the stress condition, the more you switch to those automatic programs, and the more you switch to the energy saving regime. And that means that you stop consciously seeing the things around you. So if you want to take care about your relationship, your team you're working with, and your colleagues, always please remember that you need energy to feel joy. And that's all my story I wanted to share today. And I hope you find something useful, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Aliona, for sharing. The applause is missing in the online format, clearly. We have some questions. If anyone else have more questions to ask, you can ask those questions in the YouTube chat. And the first question is about appropriate response. I've talked about appropriate response. How do you know what is the appropriate response?
So first of all, how I know, I actually measure my level of cortisol in my blood. If I figure out that it's extremely high, I do some testing in a couple of months. Plus, there are quite a lot of biohacks to measure that in other things. So technology helps in this way a lot. On the other hand, I catch myself how my organism actually, what kind of signals it gives me. Meaning that, Aliona, you start roaring. And then immediately as well, I figure out what helps me to remove the stress. And sometimes it can be meditation. Sometimes it means going to the shooting range. So, there are different kind of dealing with the stress, or just going to the forest to walk with the dog. But I plan that into my daily routine then. I mean that I finish work at 5. That means from 6 to 7, I go to meditate, or I go to the forest, or I go simply to watch some stupid movie. But I know that that's time for me, which I need back then to relax. And if you have troubles with sleep and rest, all the things, you don't need blood test.
Would it be accurate to say that an appropriate response will be different for different people?
Of course. And I talked more about how much of that need. If you are going to the burnout for 1 year, that means that easily 1 year is required to get back on track. That if you are stressed for 1 month, that means that 1 month is required to recover, not 4 days in the spa.
Then we also have a bit of, I guess, off-topic question, and it's, How did you start to smoke so much, even if you did sports professionally?
Actually, in events management, it's the only place where nobody disturbs you with troubles. When you are in some kind of arena and you know it's lightning, tickets, things which fall apart, and then if someone goes to smoke, it's like, a place where you cannot ask problems related questions. It's just for topics. Then when you are tired, you start to smoke like every half an hour to make a break.
Gotcha. Then another question is, so as a competitive sports person, what's your position on undertraining versus overtraining? What do you pick yourself and what you recommend for others? I'm not sure if that's exactly on topic, but let's go with it.
Actually, the same, as with the stress, there are, you tend very consciously to overtrain a bit, but then you have that long recovery, but then you are getting with the even better shape. The same actually is happening with stress, So for me, it's maybe sometimes overtraining, but then making sure that you have whole recovery process where you come back much stronger.
And so you would apply the same principles, I guess, to work, not just sports, right?
Yeah, because you actually, with the stress, it's very hard to catch yourself when you are like just a bit of overstressed than you do. Usually you feel that when it's quite a bit. So, yes.
Clear. Thank you. That's all the questions we had. And thank you everyone for asking these questions. Now we're gonna switch over to Justas and his story.
Cool. So it's quite an impactful story, I might say, coming from Aliona. Really, thank you for that. Makes me think twice what I want to do with my life. And also special thanks to you because your speech made me feel less crazy, as we do share quite a few of similar thoughts. And I was thinking maybe I'm crazy and I'm the only one person in the world who thinks this way. So no longer it makes the two of us. Let's greet ourselves. I'm Justas Gudavičius, lead of engineering unit at Devbridge, and the teams that report to me add up to roughly 60 persons. So this role naturally puts quite a few responsibilities on the table. Yes, I noticed that the number of people we take care of is quite similar between myself and Aliona, and probably Gintarė will join us in this club as well. So today's topic is stress, and given my role, I suppose you also think that I have some learnings to share. There's this Chinese curse. It's not really Chinese, but I definitely like its subtleness. May you live in interesting times. In interesting times. I am pretty sure our ancestors would pay a smile to us saying we live in very interesting times, but this time it really is different and interesting. We've now got technology that only 100 years ago would have been unimaginable. So today we are overconnected humans. This technology is everywhere. We've got internet everywhere and all the time, literally, whether we are on the bicycle or we work in a coffee shop, we constantly send and receive information. We've got work emails, we've got Slack messages from a variety of workspaces. Sometimes even our previous job forgets to turn off our accounts, and we get the messages from there as well. Calling someone over the phone is very much last millennia. The Zoom or Teams video calls make it happen here and now. And the problem with that is that you can be visible from your home. I mean, it's not necessarily a problem if we do that in the right time, but we know how it happens. And there are many more other ways to get in touch with us. It's not just the connectivity to the network. It's about the social part of it. We should not forget that almost all of us are now part of this. What scares me a lot is how Facebook and Google and other giants help us surround ourselves with the bubbles of people, opinions, values, fashion, their statuses and maps of meaning. Bubbles that we liked upon us. And again, literally. So while we are very well connected with certain humans and overlapping social bubbles and social networks or real life, we are disconnected from humanity. Not always, and not everyone, but we sometimes catch ourselves, I'm pretty sure, that we are no longer as humane as we used to be in the old times. And all that results in boosting our fairly obvious causes of stress. The long hours we work and the resulting lack of sleep make us tired, less able to concentrate, feeling guilty of not spending enough time with family or friends. It has direct impact to our physical health too, as we have just heard. The progress of our projects or other plans is definitely not set in stone. Things happen, and those outside factors are known to force you change your course quite often, and sometimes even very significantly. And the bigger the change is needed, the less anticipated it is, the more stressful it becomes. The decisions that affect you or your team or your work can happen outside of the area of your own responsibilities. Not always you find a way to influence those decisions so that they take care of your concerns, which are then left unattended. And you want to be successful. If that wasn't enough already, others want you to succeed too. Problem is that it becomes hard to be a super dad or mom, a super wife or husband, and a great people person, and produce unmatched delivery results, all at the same time. And then there are people who are plainly wrong, and we have to argue with them. Not always we are successful at this, and sometimes those people are us. Complex projects, difficult tasks, stage fright, presentation about failure to a difficult client, first time interviewing such a senior person for the job, or even changing a job yourself. All those aren't very comfortable situations. Before, during, and even after, we often question ourselves. Why the hell did I say yes to that? And trust me, I did question myself about this presentation multiple times over the last, I don't know, months when I was working on the content. And moreover, even more, there's life. I could elaborate on this, but in terms of dealing with the above, life can sometimes make it harder. In an order of magnitude, life is important. Many cause stress, but I'm here not to provide specific advice. My intent is to walk through the steps I made when creating a system for myself to stress. And here I would like to note something special. I trust that you empathize to the things I have listed here and you have experienced those before. So I trust that you also know some people who just brush things off and carry on, seemingly without any reaction to stress factors that could freak us out. I don't know about everyone else. I do like to self-reflect and dig into my own feelings, and my hobby is racing cars, so I spend quite some time in the workshop. And that alone time, when the family is already asleep, is a way for me to disconnect from everyday routine, recharge, and contemplate. So as obvious as it is, the root cause of stress to me always was reality does not match expectations. That can be your own expectations, or that can be expectations of other people, your family, friends, social bubble, management, or even imaginary ideal yourself you're trying to live up to. Each item in this list makes me immediately think about how to solve it. However, if we spend time rewriting the problem statement differently, we might uncover some indirect solutions that are closer to the root cause. One by one, the long hours and the lack of sleep, is that really what we have to fix, or is that the expectation that we have for ourselves or someone else has for us, for more results, for more delivery? We can pick another one, conflict. It's going to be the theme for the next meeting that we will have in January, if I caught that correctly. Is that an expectation by us for others to understand us. Core issue with things that cause stress for us isn't those things by themselves. It's in what role we award them with in our lives, how important we make them to us, and how thoughtful we are with our own appetite for more. Money, influence, recognition, sense of accomplishment. Every example here brings further questions under the table. Is the expectation valid? And is the reality valid? Let's look at that again. Are the things we mentioned before true? When we work long hours, is that because we have such a volume of work? Or can't we time manage well enough? If the load varies week to week, can't we not even it out so that no week is too stressful? Or maybe we are binge watching Chernobyl on Netflix until late night and have trouble getting up in the morning. We're slowly getting to reality. It's Queen's Gambit these days. Chernobyl is a thing of the past. When was the last time a project went exactly the way it was planned? Observe, learn, adjust, repeat, that's our job? Maybe not the right job. A question we have to ask ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we're not heard because we didn't speak up. Or we did, but we did that in an unproductive way, and we got ignored. Should we focus on learning how to communicate our messages instead of worrying about an ability to influence in this particular case? Could that be a real path forward? And this one's really important. Saying a no, a valid no, is what a mature professional does. We can have a separate topic of no, and it will not be enough to learn this. The same about delegation. But instead of worrying about the amount of work that's ahead of us, we can at least worry and later work on skills needed to resolve such situations. Conflict, it's been mentioned today as well. Ever been in a negotiation? When you go into a meeting prepared to negotiate, you think through what you want, what you need, and what you can offer. You do your best to estimate the other party on those questions, and then you work together on a combination that works for all of you. Why not do the same with conflict? It's a more productive way of dealing with stuff. And lastly, just as our muscles grow when lifting weights and become capable of even larger ones, our professional capabilities only really grow when we stretch ourselves. So let's be honest with ourselves about what we value more, our own growth or comfort, because we have to choose one. Every cause of stress leads us to questioning both the reality and the expectations, and then our own relationship with both. Life is just life. We're humans after all. By acknowledging our own mistakes, weaknesses, and questioning our positions and values, we do accept ourselves and we realize the care of ourselves, just as Aliona has mentioned to us. Therefore, we are humane to ourselves. And thanks for that lesson, Aliona, again. Let's reconnect to the humanity. Let's be fair to ourselves and acknowledge it. Acknowledge the reality. We're very prone to wrong perceptions. The perpetual success by other people is not real. It hides a lot of work they had to do until they were able to show it off on LinkedIn or Facebook. That's where the social bubbles become dangerous. It also hides the failures and the support they received from other people until they got where they are. And that's the social bubble filters. And a cherry on the top, there aren't even that many so successful people as we might think. And they're definitely not granted with more happiness than the ones we did not see. We often hide the dark truth from ourselves. We're not honest about what we are really able to do. We set ourselves wrong expectations, either too big or not too challenging enough for us to grow. And then we stress about that. We definitely don't want to see bad situations and postpone the moment we accept the reality until it explodes to the face. We forget to ask for help and to admit mistakes. And we fear of pointing at things that are going wrong just because we avoid conflict. Again, stress just postponed. Speaking of fears, we're often afraid of stuff unnecessarily. Sometimes such outcomes aren't realistic, and sometimes their impact just doesn't deserve our reaction. Let's be real about that with ourselves. To all fairness, some outcomes are very dangerous and real, just not imminent, such as possible lung cancer. I hate myself for this example I took, due to us smoking. And the stress we feel because of those facts is well deserved. It's actually not the stress and not those facts where we need to create solution on. It's our behavior. That's something that we sometimes have to be honest with ourselves too. We have to be humble because humans make mistakes. Robots break down, but humans make mistakes. Sometimes we even deserve the punishment, such as a speeding ticket. Admit, analyze, learn, and share what you learn from that. That makes mistakes productive. And you know what? We might not know ourselves well enough. We might not know where the anxiety comes from. Seek a friend or a colleague. That can be professional help as well. It's important to have someone to talk to about what you feel. You can leverage your ability to self-reflect to a certain point, but having someone to coach you through a problem will be marvelous. We're humans after all, and we're designed to survive as a pack and not individuals. But you know what? What do we do with the perceptions? Perception really is reality, because that is what drives further actions and essentially writes our life story, whether that's our own or someone else's story and perception. My boss once said to me while delivering feedback during my performance review, "Streso ant tavęs nesimato." That should never appear stressed for our English-speaking friends. So partially that's true due to my hobby. My close call experiences from car racing do help, in particular by vastly improved ability to control physical reactions in unexpected situations. That's voice, movement, stance, and overall composure. Also, having experience of life-threatening events helps putting a different perspective on how exactly fearful the situations are. That helps suggesting the importance, I think, as well. So that's just one small tool in the shed, while the real work is done by the following techniques. Question yourself. Aim to figure out what you feel and why. Uncover the truths you hide from yourself and expose what you are reluctant to admit. Stay mindful. Be critical about what you can or cannot do to change the outcomes. Spend more time thinking about what you can do rather than what you cannot. Remember people who just brush the same things off that you cannot stop worrying about? They have a different perception. Challenge yours. And please continue being humane to yourself. Cut yourself some slack, goddammit. Celebrate the wins. And don't forget, you're not alone. This one, sorry, there is a janitor over the door. Nah. This one is an extremely broad topic in one slide. So by now you've learned to dig into what the facts are and punished yourself with a cruel reality. At this stage, you can continue by thinking on what exactly you want to achieve. It might be a not so sexy goal, for example, a title that you'd wear proudly in your social circles that would make you stand out. But as cruel as it gets, just the title will only hurt you. You want a deserved one, so you really want to become such a person. And you realize that's hard. It won't happen soon. It might even be too early to start talking about this loud. Guess what? You've just avoided lots of stress, unsatisfied, unrealistic expectation, risk of getting brought down to earth by your management or looked down by your peers, secretly knowing that you're an imposter if you succeed by any chance, and feeling guilty of ever more growing pile of lies. So now is the time to start mapping the meanings, personal to you meanings of the plain facts. There must be things that you don't exactly enjoy in the journey to the goal that you want, but that's one-sided or not one-sided. You can find ways how the difficulties become enjoyable. Bravado, no pain, no gain attitude, work hard, play hard, or ticking the checkboxes, everything works, whatever floats your boat. How exactly you award those steps, facts that need to happen, with meaning is a matter of your creativity. I'm pretty sure you've done this exercise with others. If you have any experience in leadership, I'm certain of that. So nothing will stay constant along the way. The doubts will cast. Just start the same exercise from the beginning. It will be easier every time. Did I forget the bullet points? Of course I did. So I was doing this long time before I've learned what NLP is and learned the techniques. To my surprise, I was kind of doing the same for my own stress management and personal growth. So as controversial as it is, if it works, it ain't stupid. And the golden rule, as the best conclusion, whatever you benefit from will likely be useful for others. As a matter of fact, by coaching other people on their own personal improvement topics, you benefit from those same lessons learned. Helping others live stress through or overcome it or dodge its causes, that will be a great personal relief for you as well. So be humane, empathetic, sense when someone is in need. Listen and hear what it is. Provide them with context so that they understand what's going on. Let them contribute to your own position and accept people for being who they are. In times of need, find ways to still make their ends meet. Be it flexible working hours, allowing to take care of kids, borrowing an office table for home office setup, or creating opportunities to challenge themselves. All the help you provide comes back when you really, really need it. And that's what humanity is for. Trust me. I have experienced that more than a dozen times. Let's recap quickly what we've discussed today. Accept the reality for what it is. Don't hide from it. The later it comes to you, the harder it will be to accept. Be fair to others and to yourself. Admit weaknesses and don't be ashamed of mistakes. That's how you learn. Be realistic about what you can achieve given the constraints. Also, challenge yourself enough so that you continue growing. Find ways to motivate yourself. Some things just have to be endured, and others could simply be skipped. Don't strangle yourself, but also don't give way to complacency, because sometimes this proverb is true. It's better to feel sorry for the things that you have done than the ones that you haven't done. Accomplishments are great motivators, so it becomes easier as you go. Slow to crawl, difficult to learn walking, but then running fast. You must not leave yourself alone. Be conscious about maintaining healthy relationships with other people, friends, family, colleagues, you name it. And finally, share what you have to share. As an example, I'd like to encourage more people to come here to this stage. Well, it's a virtual stage, but anyways, it does take time to prepare, and it is somewhat stressful to execute, especially when a janitor continues standing behind the door. But gosh, I'm at the end of the presentation, and it now feels very rewarding. Thank you for having me here. And if you have something to talk about, be it this topic or something entirely different, just join the separate Zoom meeting. And that's the link to the Zoom meeting, tinycc/Justas. And after this meetup, and we can chat about something, whatever you want. That's it.
Thank you, Justas. Could you turn off the presentation?
Guess what? I'm alone in the office. So, Mindaugas, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do. Could you turn off the presentation?
To turn it off? Yeah, sure, I can.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. So, well, you do have some questions, but before I go into questions, I'm just gonna remark on one thing. The word in your presentation, "you are not alone," are really meaningful to me, especially there's this painting in the background. It's actually a gift by my brother, and he gave me on one birthday. And the painting is called "You Are Not Alone," and it serves as a powerful reminder that I can talk to him whenever I want. And now, after this little interlude, let's go into questions. The first question we have is, you talked some about social media, social bubble. How do you personally deal with it? How do you personally deal with social media, social bubble? How do you handle that?
How do I deal with it? I don't see the phenomena of social bubbles as a big problem for myself, because I kind of found a way to get out of it. And trust me, when you have a hobby that's completely different from what you do at work, you just get a chance to meet so many different people and get those different opinions, everything. But I think the question is actually about how do you get from there? How do you really see the world that's behind that social bubble? And that's probably by taking some chances and trying to talk to, for example, someone working in a convenience store. And I literally had one really heart-moving experience when I just complimented a person who was putting the I think that was paprikas, yellow, green, and red. Notice the colors on February 16th, in the way they should be. So it's kind of, I just asked, did you think of that yourself? And the person said yes. And I said, it's awesome, an awesome idea. I mean, just a small thing, but an awesome idea. And then we started talking. So take chances, and then you'll go out there.
Cool. Then another question we have is, the person is asking, would you agree that the cause of suffering or stress is lust?
Lust.
Yes, lust.
Like golden rush.
Well, I think what the person might be referring to is that not just lust, like sexual lust, but lust for something, like lust for recognition, lust for something more.
It's I don't think that it's the lust itself that's causing this. I think that as we had an example, it's the expectation that we then build for ourselves. So we expect us to earn a certain amount of money. We expect us to get a certain title. We expect us to be successful in some way, and then we find ourselves unhappy if we don't, or we get there, but at what a cost. And that's the disconnect from the reality and your own capabilities and capacity. That's where the unhappiness comes from, but not the lust itself.
Cool. And one more question we have is, saying no is hard, especially because of the fear of missing out. Could you share some examples on when you said no and felt happy about the outcome?
I could give some more examples when I did not say no and wasn't happy about the outcomes. No, but really, I tend, when I get a question like that, I tend to get back to what's really valuable for you. What could you live with? What could you live without? Is not an answer to this question, but what you get and what you could not live without, that's what you get. So I'm really happy that I sometimes do not take additional responsibilities and leave some time for family, for friends, and that time is something that I will remember when I will be old. So that's when I know makes me feel happier, even though I know that I missed something.
Thank you. And that was the last question we have. Thank you again. And now we're gonna give the mic to Gintarė.
Good luck, Gintarė.
Okay. I'm very impressed on what has been shared by Aliona and Justas, because it's a good recap for myself to remind some of the things and just, to be more aware of myself and the way I do react to the certain things. So hello, everyone. I am Gintarė. I recently joined Satali as a product owner. And just to summarize my experience, I do have 8+ years international experience. And I've been managing teams, the project teams from 6 to all the way to 70 people. My way was to look at today's presentations from the professional career path. I left the personal life aside, even though, as Aliona rightly said, there are no lines anymore, I guess, between from professional and personal life, in a matter that our emotions and our well-being affects all the units. It's either family, friends, or the teams. So on the professional matter, right, usually it all starts for me with something new, something positive, right? It starts with the good vibes, positive energy, and it's coming either under new exciting, opportunity, new project, new challenge, having high standards, for myself, having high standards towards the work environment or the teams, and sometimes even having high expectations. It can be, to nearly everything. What it's not said and what it's not, written and not being communicated, but between the lines, there are some danger, or you can call that a high risk. So I've been myself through the moment where I had swim or drown. In one of the companies I had, let's call it my dream project, and that was my goal, what I wanted to achieve there. And I've managed to get, on that project. Of course, it all started, as the new project to take on, and the surface underneath was not clear. But by the time I joined the project, it was swim or drown, and I felt that I was being, thrown out from the deck. But I had the I can do attitude, and I wanted, to push my limits and actually to explore my limits, because, I had a very strong reason why I wanted to do that project, and, what are my personal goals. So then you are in the middle of the ocean, right? And you have to catch the next first ship, and you had to catch up with everything what's been happening. So I've been saying yes to all the meetings, and since there were freeze in the company and in the corporate environment, freeze, it means that you have very limited, ways of getting external access to external, hire people, or some other external companies where you can get the support. That ended up working and being, running one-man show, as well as to manage that, to meet all the contractual obligations, to meet the project scope, and being available to the team, because the team was already running under depression by the time we joined the project. They were, left, I would say, in the dark. They have not had enough details to run the regions or the countries independently. And I felt that, being in the leader role and leading that project, that was my obligation to support the team, because if they don't get what they need, there are no chances we can achieve any results for the client. And I do understood that, it will mean that for me, that at the very beginning, I will be working, long hours, and that was my decision, right? So I wanted this project. I had less experience, and that project was, few steps above my experience by that time. And I took a decision that I will put all the efforts, and that's okay. This is something I want to do. The part is that at the beginning, I thought that I will be working those long hours for the short time. That was not exactly the case. Yes, I've been working those hours for the first 2 months, and I was feeling very good, right? I still had a lot of energy to run. I was excited, and I was happy to do that. However, the danger is to stay in that mode for a long time. it does harm to you, even though, you know, you have the mental strength and you have your personal drivers to go through that moment. But my side effect of working those long hours, jumping from plane to plane and switching time zones was affected by the poor sleep quality. And by that, I had nearly half of the year of the very poor sleep quality. So I was able to sleep quite okay during the weekends, but Monday, Friday, I couldn't, you know, shut my minds trying to solve and trying to remember all the things what I needed to do. If, you know, at least that works in a way for me like a domino. So if the sleep is not good, usually the next item that would fall apart, it's a diet, because you have a lower level of energy, which means you need to get the energy, you know, from a side, and that comes as, you know, caffeine plus sugar or even carbs. And that also affects the workout. So low energy, you know, you have lower energy during the workout. So my choice at that time was, okay, so if I will try to sleep 1 hour longer, you know, for the next week, that means that probably on the second week, I will have more energy and I can come back, you know, to the workout. So I would, you know, balance my energy and emotions, and I would keep myself on, let's say, as normal as possible, the mental level. But that was not true, because I was just fooling myself. And the other part with that, I had a very reserved tolerance. And by reserved tolerance, I mean towards people and towards, you know, team members. So I had low level of empathy. I've lost curiosity to some of the, you know, things, what was happening aside. So I kept myself highly focused. So I would just, you know, use all my energy and effort just to finish off the project. And I was impatient to some of the, you know, questions, and you cannot get away with those things, right? So either you start getting the comments from a side. So I'm happy, you know, for those who said that, because to realize that, you know, myself, it took a bit more time. And I thought that, okay, so the next project will be, you know, something where I can just work the regular hours, and that's going to be a way for me on how to recover. And I will take a couple of weeks of holiday because the summer was ahead, and I thought that's it, I will be, you know, done with my recovery part. But the funny fact, the way I understood that I need, you know, like a proper break was by watching one of the TV shows on the national television. The theme for that TV series was the chronic stress and the impact of that. So by listening, I was able to take all the bullet points, and that was awakening moment for me, that I will not get away with 2 weeks. You know, it's not enough. I'm running on the very last drops of my body energy, and if I will not stop now, so, you know, the body will find the ways on how to stop me. And I took what I call a rehab holiday. That was nearly for 7 weeks during the summertime. And I do say that was a proper time, you know, to recover. I have not, you know, taken the results. That would be very interesting next time, by going through the stressful situation, to take the blood results and to measure the cortisol level, as well as to measure that after the rehab, and just to check, you know, if that are within the limits, and just to know if the rehab or the holiday time was enough for you to recover. So what I've learned, you know, from that experience, and actually being in the situations where I ended up being on a project where I had a, let's say, the lower impact to make a decision. So I had just to change, you know, my attitude towards that, and to find other reasons why. So, you know, we are all human, right? So it's supposed to be so easy to communicate with us, but the fact is that we are all very different. And if we add the cultural level on top of that, so we have a very high complexity and very high, you know, very high complexity to deal with on just the personal level. So my personal learnings on how to identify if the team is doing okay by doing active listening and asking the question. So how was your weekend? How do you feel? And if you get any of those alerts that, the person would say they cannot sleep for quite some time, or they feel nervous. So, if you have a trust, you can just, if that's okay, based, on the relationship and based on the circumstances where you're having that conversation, just maybe to advise to take, a rest. And I've seen myself on one of my colleagues on the project going through a burnout moment. And I couldn't recognize that at the beginning because I was in that, the stressful moment. Actually, it was probably the panic attack for me during that moment. And the way I learned that I need to change my attitude and I need to be more supportive, we ended up having, let's call it, more emotional conversation over the phone. And afterwards, it was a phone call just to use the rational brains, right? To discuss what was said, and just to say, and to admit to ourselves that our emotions were speaking. And that's the time where he admitted that he really needs time. And there are only one way on how to deal with that. So I would need to respect that whenever he says he's taking a day off and a couple of hours, and this is what he needs to do if I want, to get him back on the team. And in those cases, you cannot think, but but maybe before you go, can you do this, part of the work? Can you do the task? Can you finish the document? No, if the person is saying no, that's a good that he can recognize, and he's aware of his well-being, and leading the team, leading the unit. It doesn't matter in which role you are, or just leading your family. So our obligation is just to respect and support that. And it doesn't matter for how hard it is, but you need to find those moments to have fun, because that brings a joy, that brings smile, and that creates a moments. Because I do believe that life is it's like a big puzzle from those moments. So it's our obligation, being in the team and going through the stressful moments, to create those fun moments. It can be even remote, since we are moving to a remote world and the online world. Just to reiterate and just to summarize some of my learnings, right? So as I said, whenever I put myself into the new challenge, I do know the reason why. But if I do end up being in an environment where I was not exactly that I would expect it, I am trying to change my attitude towards, okay, so what I can take it from there, right? So what I can learn from this environment, from this team, being in that moment, if there is anything that I can change myself, because there are only probably two options, right? It's either to change the attitude or just to change the environment that you're in. I also, figure out what works for me to reduce the negativity triggers. By that, I do have in mind to reduce access to the news and some of the social medias. So for the last, I believe, 5 years already, I don't watch news. I don't read, especially the national news portals, because what I figure out that even though I'm consciously reading, right, that these are just the news, but I get the negative trigger, and that raises my stress level. Especially, in the given time, I do not follow on the numbers daily. I do know, what were the numbers like a week ago or even more. I just, make a decision that they are not changing drastically. And my way of going through that, this is just a side noise. I cannot change that. And I choose, to focus on the things where I can make impact. It's just to iterate what Justas said, right? To say no. It's important to say no. And just by preparing for this presentation, I remembered one of the managers, the first thing I've joined the company, he said, you have to learn to say no. And my, the react answer was, how can I say no? Because I'm curious. I want, to try different shoes, try different hats. There is so much where I want to, put myself in just to learn a different skill. It's either the hard skills or the soft skills. So how can I say no if, I'm open to those things? So it took me some time to get the point what he was saying, but I guess that refers and that comes with your experience. So the more experience you have, you get, I guess, the better resilience towards some of the triggers. And I had to learn in a hard way on how to let it go, especially considering the fact that my attitude for the project was, I'm going to put enormous effort, right? So I'm choosing to work on the weekends instead of doing something nice, with friends, family, and getting the fun part, because I want to achieve the goals. And I ignored the colleagues who were saying that it's not worth it for you to put so much energy because it will not, work the way you would expect. My attitude was, okay, let's test it out, right? So I'm going to prove you that you are all wrong because I can, be one-man show. I'm going to put all the energy and it will work. No, that was one of the hard lessons for me, to realize that sometimes you cannot, even though you put a lot of effort, but there are some circumstances where you don't have impact, you don't have authority to change it, and you just need to accept the fact that you need to let go and you need to work on the other plan, or you just need to move on and just, to change the focus area. So one of the other things, what I've learned during the rehab, and that, iterates what has been said by Aliona and Justas, and just, to highlight that live the day for me means just to being conscious about the day and enjoying, the simple things like going out to the city to drink coffee, meeting, friends, or just strolling around the city, and not living in a way that, probably the springtime will be better, even though I tend still to do that. But I'm in a better awareness mode, and my decision is to try to focus on the day as much as I can. Or if that doesn't work for me, so I do allow myself, okay, today I will focus on the future, and tomorrow I will be, coming back to the reality. If you have not tried it yet, I would also recommend, as one of the, let's say, ways on how to deal with stress, to take a solo time. I do highly recommend to take solid time by changing the location. So at least for the half of the day, for one day, go to the forest, explore, the city, just drive to the next city, because that did some magic for me as well. Because we have to spend so much time during, our working hours communicating through different channels. And there were some cases where I couldn't speak more just because my voice was telling me that, it's time to take the quiet moment. So having that solid time for quite some time, it gives you a moment where you can just absorb, the environment, and you have that live the day moment. So to summarize that, currently my personal ways on how to deal with stressful moments are, I try to keep myself in discipline. By discipline, I do understand that I do know now what is my bare minimum of sleeping hours. By sleeping hours, I have in mind like a good quality sleep. And if still I struggle, if I do have stress coming from a side, even it can be affected by the full moon. So I try to keep myself disciplined with the sleep so that I would have enough energy to do workouts as well as the diet. Or if the sleep patterns, it's getting broken, so I take the decisions as much as possible consciously so that I would, get back on track with the sleeping. The other thing what I recently discovered, and it helps me a lot to do journaling. And I do that as one of the first thing in the morning, as well as one of the last thing before going to bed. Sometimes, I just put some of the ideas, the way I feel, the way I want to, live the day, or what are my key goals for today, as well as at the end of the day. Sometimes, just giving the score for myself, how I lived the day. It's, from scale to 10. And what it gives to me, it raises awareness, because on Sundays, usually I would review the week. And well, I cannot, hide from myself, because that was written by me and that's in front of me. So it's just a way to slowly, increase the way I do react to the stressful situations. As it was mentioned before, it's always important to feel and to be supportive, even though sometimes you may not be able to see the people, but knowing that somebody has your back, or sometimes you need to hold somebody's back, that's important. And that help us through to go tough moments, and it gives some positive energy. Or sometimes the support is here just to turn on your rational brains instead of emotional brain speaking to you. The other thing what I've discovered, when I do feel that there is too much tension and pressure, especially after the tough day, I would put the headset on and I would just stroll around. So usually for the first 2 kilometers the music would be very loud and I would walk as fast as I can. And afterwards, the music, the volume would go down and I would slower, my steps, and eventually I would finish without a headset. What I do know, right, that every single day I have a choice on how I react, because considering all the factors, what's happening, in the world, with all the technologies, all the choices, I guess there are two ways on how to look to stress or stressful moments, and that's my personal opinion. So it's either to see that as an opportunity or to see that as something bad or negative. And I really like what Steve Jobs said, that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So just taking the retrospective on my personal experience and going through those tough moments, now it makes sense. What was the benefit of that? I am aware of the side, the dark side of that as well. And even today I feel my heartbeat, so my stress level, it's up, right? But it's my personal choice. I do know that I do have a fear for the public speaking, but I choose to face the fear and I choose to improve for the next public speaking. So what's your choice today? Thank you.
Thank you, Gintarė. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them in the YouTube chat. We do have a couple, and Gintarė, could you stop? Yeah, thank you. Sharing the screen. And the Well, first I'm going to remark that I know exactly what you mean regarding following the news and social media and what's happening. For me personally, if I do that too much, that leads to frustration and makes me spend my emotions on something I cannot control. So I definitely know what you're talking about there. Now, the first question we have is, you told that you've recognized chronic stress. How do you recognize it exactly? What were those bullet points you mentioned?
One of those bullet points I cannot say, because I even don't know how that it's translated in English, because that, you know, the medical term. But somebody who is interested, you can ping me, you know, through LinkedIn, or just send me an email and I will Google that. But it was one of the key things that it was mentioned. If you have, as they call it, reserve tolerance, or you have a very low level of empathy, and especially, you know, for the simple questions of your colleague asking, let's say for the third, the fifth time, on how should I do that, that's one of the alerts. The poor sleep. So, you know, you cannot avoid the fact that I was not sleeping properly for nearly half of the year. So it's definitely something wrong, right? So that was just trying to remember. So there is one, that medical term what has been used, where actually your hormones are so you know, stretched that you can do anything what you want, but you need to take the quiet time, because there is no any other way on how to recover unless you would take, you know, some like strong medicine.
Gotcha.
That TV show was Klauskite Daktara, so
Gotcha. Then about you've mentioned saying no. Could you, and this was also a question that was previously addressed to Justas. Well, we have the same question. Could you give some examples on when you said no and you felt happy about the outcome?
yeah. So let's take this, you know, from the personal life. So if I do have a particular, you know, plan, what I want to do through the weekend, so that, you know, I would, you know, feel better, let's say the next week, or I have a personal goal. And if I would be invited, you know, let's say to go out, or just to meet somebody, there were a few times where, you know, I took a pause before using the react mode to say yes, right? Because, you know, it sounds fun to go out to meet people. I took a moment to pause, and I thought, okay, if I will I feel better if I will go out, or will I feel better and there will be a benefit for me if I would stay in and I will work on what I've planned? So that's one of the ways. You know, for the professional life, it works in the similar, you know, manner. So you just need to know your priorities, what you want to, you know, focus. I'm not referring, you know, to the project task or the day-to-day, but I am more referring, you know, to the side activities, to be part of the engagement teams or the social activities. So know your reasons why you're going there. And if you know why, so you know how to say yes or no.
Yeah, that's all the questions we have. And thank you again, Gintarė. For the speakers and for everyone watching, the recording of this meetup will be available on YouTube, in the same place where you're watching it now. If you're watching it now, feel free to share it after the meetup. Another reminder that our next meetup is in January. We don't know yet whether it will be online or live. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers for that meetup. We'll have Vaidas Pilkauskas, Haris Norika, and Giedrius Jaraminas joining us and telling their stories about conflict. And if you'd like to speak at a future Vilnius Tech Leads meetup, message me or one of the other organizers, or email me at Mindaugas, my first name, at vinted.com. That's mindaugas@vinted.com. Thank you again to all three speakers. Feel free to join Justas in his Zoom call at tinycc tiny.cc/Justas. And thanks to Dinah, Idas, and everyone else who helped make this event happen. Again, thank you everyone for watching, and hope to see you in our future events.